Today we're going to talk about deductive reasoning. We've talked already about a counterexample is enough to prove that a conjecture is false, but how can we prove that a conjecture is true? Deductive reasoning uses logic to draw conclusions from given facts, properties, and definitions. We have a couple of laws that we have to apply to use deductive reasoning. The first one is the law of detachment. The law of detachment states if P then Q is true and P is true, then Q is true. So what that means is that if P then Q is true and P is true, then Q is also true. We're going to take a look at some examples. Syllogism also, and then we'll look at some examples. So the law of syllogism, you can see that it's set up like the law of detachment. If P then Q, P is true, then Q is true. Let me look. Well, we'll look at the law of it states that if P then Q is true and Q then R is true, then if P then R is true. The requirement for syllogism is that the conclusion of one is the hypothesis of the other. So see here where I have P is my hypothesis and R is the conclusion. If you'll notice in the last final statement, we have that same thing. P is the hypothesis, R is the conclusion. And Q here was the conclusion of the first one, and it's the hypothesis of the second one. So that's requirements for that to be that way. Now, what these create are valid statements. Valid logic is valid reasoning. Are they always true? Maybe not, but it's always valid reasoning. And if you look at kind of what we do, or what I like to do as we go through, I like to mark up what is what. So I like to mark my P's and Q's, if you will. So right here I have this. That would be my P. It's my if part. If P, and then this is Q. And then, so that's saying if two segments are congruent, then they are the same length. Well, here, this statement, segment AB is congruent to segment XY, is basically a repeat, and it's saying, I am so sorry. That's not what it's saying. Where's my eraser? So what it is saying is that the two statements are congruent. So it's telling me that my two segments are congruent because AB is congruent to XY. So it's telling me that this, so P is true. And now my final statement is saying, so my conjecture, the conclusion that I can draw is that they are equal, which is Q is true. So if you look at how this is set up, and we go back a page, so let's look again. P then Q, P is true, Q is true. So this would be valid, by the law of detachment. Okay, this next one, number 2, if you look at it, I've already got it marked up. I've got P then Q, Q then R, and then P then R. And that is exactly what we said right here. So if measure of angle A is less than 90 degrees, then it's acute. That's true. If angle A is acute, then it is not a right angle. That's true. So my conjecture then is also true, because that's what the law of syllogism says, is if these two things, then that thing. So this again is valid by the law of, oh, not again, but syllogism. Okay, let's look at, sorry, my slides are off. So this one says we're given, if a number is divisible by 4, then it's divisible by 2. So that divided that up. Let's go back. It's divided into two separate things.